Are you glad you're here today? Are you glad the person sitting next to you, are you glad they're here today? Tell them that. Just say, I'm so glad you're here today. You probably need to hear what he's talking about. You could go ahead and say that if you want. Man, it is good to be with you. We're in the last part of our series, John 10:10, this living a 10:10 life, living life beyond, life to the full. I shared with you when I started this 4 weeks ago, I've always wanted to do this series at this church since I've been here. It's a life verse of mine of that Jesus said, I have come to give you life to the full. So in fact, let's read it. He says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that it may have life and have it to the full. Now, when I read this for the first time, what intrigued me was life to the full. My life wasn't to the full, and most Christians that I knew, their lives wasn't to the full either. They weren't having this great Christian experience. It was difficult. It was a challenge. It was a trial. They weren't happy. They were gripey all the time. And I was like, well, what's the problem here? Is Jesus lying, or is there something else going on? What I found was something else going on is that most people think they're following Jesus, and they may not be. And that may be you today. I'm going to challenge you on that. That they really don't know what it's like to live life to the full. So the first week, we just looked at what the full means. And the full really means this. It's life to the full means experiencing life beyond what is necessary. Beyond what is necessary. Life to the full, overflowing, more abundantly, more than you can even imagine. Jesus, I've come to give you that life. But he also said that there's another kind of life. I call it a less than life. It's a diminished life. It's not to the full. So the second week, we looked at that. That in order to have life to the full, you can't follow what Jesus said, thieves and robbers. Is that if you follow them, they're going to steal away the joy in your life, the happiness in your life. And most of the decisions we make when it comes to sin in our life is it's going to lead to destruction. It's going to lead to death. And then week 3, last week, Tim looked at, in order to live life to the full, you got to know Jesus personally. You got to understand his voice, know his voice. You've got to pray and read his word, and it's a personal relationship. And then we're going to look at, Jesus says, you got to follow me. Now, Jesus used a word picture here of sheep and shepherds, and his audience would have got it because they saw sheep and shepherds all the time. And I told you that a lot of this is formed in a book that I read years ago. My wife and I were talking about it this morning, how I came across this book called A Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm. And she got it. There was a piece of furniture that was put in her bedroom as a kid, and that book was in there. And then somehow I got it and read it, and I was like, this is life-changing. Okay, so I've got 10 copies I'm going to give away this morning, and I only have 10. And I don't know who's giving them out, but if you want a copy, Nick's going to give them out. Just raise your hand. Now, Nick can be bribed or bought, so whatever money you give Nick, he can keep. All right, so he's got 10 copies, and he's only on that side of the room, so I guess you guys lose. Oh, Chris has got them. All right, so you don't. Chris can be paid off too, all right? So you can order this book. It's like $5. You can get an online version. I think there is even an audio version of it. But this was transformative because it's written from the perspective of a shepherd and how he deals with sheep. And Jesus said that I have come to give him life. He's talking about a shepherd. And in fact, in John 10, or chapter 10, verse 1, he talks about this next step. Let's read it. He says, the watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him. They follow him because they know his voice. They would never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Now, when Jesus is using this word picture of a sheep and a shepherd, he says that the sheep will come out of this pen, the sheep pen, and they'll follow the shepherd because they recognize his voice. And then the shepherd will go on ahead of him, and they will follow them. It's not like we have with our cowboy days of you're driving sheep. You lead sheep. So in our day and age, we got these horses and these guys riding, and they got ropes and they're yelling at cows and they're pushing them forward. It was the exact opposite in Jesus' time. Shepherd would never drive his sheep, he would lead them. And he's leading them in a right path, but he's also leading them to make sure that there's not danger ahead. And Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd, and I'll lead my sheep, and they will follow me. My brother tells the story of a friend of his that had gone to the Jerusalem area, to Israel, looking at all the religious sites. And they were in this big charter bus, and they were going from town to town. And in between one of the towns, the tour guide, who was a local, was telling this exact story, this exact passage of Scripture about shepherds lead their sheep. Jesus leads us to take care of us and watch over us. And they rounded this corner, and the traffic was at a stop, and up ahead in the road was a big group of sheep. And they were going crazy. They were jumping over each other and trying to bite each other. And there was some dude in the middle of them, and he looked like a shepherd, and he was waving a stick, and he was saying curse words in another language. It was a mess. And so my brother's friend said, wait, I thought you said that shepherds lead their sheep, they don't drive their sheep. He said, well, that's exactly true. That man is not a shepherd, he's the local butcher. Jesus is saying, I love my sheep, I lead my sheep, and they follow me because they know my voice. But what does it mean to follow Jesus? That's what we're going to look at today. What does that really mean? Now, the problem we have with words in the Bible, they were said a long time ago in a different language, and we have to translate them. That's why we have so many different kinds of Bibles out there. And some get it right, and some are close. They try to get it in more modern day language. But over time, even our own words lose meaning, right? So like today does not mean like, 20 years ago. Follows the same thing. Follow today means this. It means a user who chooses to see another user's post in their content feed. That's what it means. If you like someone, you get to see their cat pictures, you get to see what they're having at Starbucks, you get to see at work, you get to see the best and the worst, and you kind of swing by and you look and you say, well, what are they doing today? That's what follow means. I'm going to tell you this. I know a lot of Christians, that's how they treat Jesus. They just come in every now and then to church and they check in on him. They just kind of see what's new with Jesus. Maybe what his Bible says, and then they'll miss for weeks because they're either at the lake or on vacation or their kids are playing sports or they don't feel good, whatever. And then they'll swing back by to check Jesus' latest posts. The word follow that Jesus uses is the exact opposite of that. The word that Jesus uses here, I found this picture. I want to show it to you. This is when Twitter was Twitter. It says, no, I'm not talking about Twitter. I literally want you to follow me. I like that. When Jesus says follow, he's saying, seriously, I want you to follow me, go where I go. The word he uses there is called akeleutheo. It means to walk the same road as someone. Now, when he would call his disciples, you might remember when he called like Peter and he said, leave your nets, leave your boat, and come follow me. The word follow there had a little different meaning than this one, even stronger. Because what it meant in that context is Jesus as a rabbi, you're now a student of the rabbi, and you follow the rabbi. You are taught by the rabbi, you learn everything you can, and in 15 years, give or take, you become a carbon copy of the rabbi. You walk like him, talk like him, think like him, teach like him, everything, just like the rabbi. So when Jesus said to Peter, come follow me, he says, for the next 15 years, you are going to become me. The only thing we have equivalent to that today is a Jedi. Anyone Jedi in training? Because if you are, I want to meet you. That's the only equivalent, is that you're a Jedi in training and eventually you become a Jedi yourself. When Jesus said, follow me, he's saying you are going to become my disciple. You are going to think like me, walk like me, even fight like me. That's what follow means. Words have meanings, and Jesus is saying, I'm not wanting you to get updates on my life. I'm wanting you to align your life with me. I want you to do what I do, go where I go. I want you to be my disciple. Now, how do you do that? How do you take the steps, students, to become a disciple of Jesus? What does that look like? Well, conveniently enough, I don't have to make this up. Jesus gave us the steps. And in Matthew 16, he tells us exactly what we've got to do. There are 3 things he tells us we've got to do. He tells us that we've got to have a desire, we got to deny, and we got to cross. All right? So we're going to look at those 3 things on how do you follow Jesus. Now, I just want to say this right here. Some of you may hear what I'm saying, and you may say, I've never done that. You can. At the end of this, I'm going to give you a shot at it. Oh, you can do it right now, or you can do it later. This is what Jesus says, if you're going to follow me, this is what I require. Matthew 16:25. He says, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Take up his cross and follow me. Now, we know what the word follow means. It means travel the same road as someone. But what does he mean when he says, if anyone would come after me? There's a better translation of this, and it's in the King James Version, the New King James Version, and I think it's more accurate. It's this: if anyone desires to come after me. The would follow me or would come after me gives us the indication that, yeah, you might give Jesus a try. Think about it. If you want to try Jesus out, take him for a test drive. If you would do that, it's okay. No, the word that he's using here is desires. And it's a very strong emotional word. I was a youth ministry major in college and a double major in psychology. And the reason I chose that, I figured if I was going to work with teenagers, I needed to know psychology because teenagers are crazy. And you are. But I like crazy, so we work well together. And one of the things I studied was Maslow's 5 hierarchy needs, if you've ever studied that. And he lists out from the bottom to the top our basic needs. There are 5 of them, and he starts at the bottom with our needs of just physiological needs. We need to eat, we need to sleep. Unless you're a teenager, you don't need to sleep. You need water, those things. We need safety, we need love and belonging, we need esteem, and the top one was called self-actualization. Now what that means is this: I need to belong, I need purpose, I need fulfillment in my life. And this is the word that Jesus is using here. It means that I want to be fulfilled. I want to be who I was meant to be. I want to know my purpose in life. It means I've run my life as well as I can, and it still isn't working. I've tried everything I know to try, and I'm still empty on the inside. Nothing's working. Nothing's fulfilling me. And I'm at the end of my rope, and I desire this, but I don't know how to get it. This is what Jesus is saying, is if anyone desires to travel down the same road I am and be my disciple, then he says there's a second thing. And he says you must deny yourself. If anyone desires to come after me, he must or she must deny themselves. Now we have a word problem here again. It's the word deny. I would read deny, and I have, as this: I want to eat that Kit Kat bar. I'm going to deny myself. Not going to eat it. I'll eat it tomorrow. I'm not going to eat ice cream tonight, but tomorrow night I'm eating ice cream. That's deny. Deny is not like putting off something you want to do. You got to catch this because I miss it so much in my life. Tempted by sin, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes, guilty, guilty, yes, no, yes, guilty, no, back and forth. That's how we see deny. Deny is not that. Deny is actually means this: to separate yourself from someone. You got to catch this. Separate yourself from someone. It's more akin to a word divorce. If anyone must want to come after me and follow me, he must divorce himself. From who? Himself. It's not giving up on something for a period of time. It's separating me from my desires. I told you that years ago I met this guy named Strawberry Ellig, and he worked at our church part-time, but he was a legendary horse trainer back in the part of Oklahoma where my church was. Well, I mean legendary, like he was a horse whisperer. He just talked to horses. It's crazy. And one day he asked me to go out and help him break horses. I'd never broken a horse in my life. I'd broken everything else, never broken a horse. And he said, you need to come try this out. And so I did. And what I learned was just so fascinating, is that every horse, we would break horses that were going on the racetrack, rodeo, we'd barrel horses, roping horses, trail horses, show horses. Any horse that's going to have somebody sit on its back has to be broken. You know why? Because you don't want 2,000 pounds telling you what to do. When you ride a horse and a horse decides, you know what, I am not going to do what this person says. I'm going to run fast under a very low tree. And he's going to do it. If you don't break a horse, he'll never submit to the rider, no matter what kind of horse. When Jesus says, I want you to deny yourself, he's saying this: I want to separate yourself from your own desires. I want you to give up selfish living. I want you to give up your right to run your life. I want you to submit your will to me. It's like when you sell a car. When you sell a car, if you ever done it, you sign the title over, right? You know what that means? You no longer have the right to drive that car. Try it. Sell a car, sign the title, and then go to their house and say, I need to take it for a weekend. When you sign the title, you've given up your right to that car. Deny means that I have signed the title of my life over to Jesus. I've taken my name off of it, and I've put his name on it. Now here's the problem, just a little refresher. Too many Christians don't have a really desire to say, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm at the end. And the only place I can look up is Jesus. And the second problem is this: they turn to Jesus and say, I'm going to give you 51% of my life, but I'm going to keep 49%. I'm going to make some decisions. I'm going to do what I want to do. And Jesus, you can have some of it, but I still have a will. I still have desires, and I'm going to follow them. But when you deny yourself, you are giving him the title of your life. This is what the word Lord means. Lord means that he's the boss of. Deny is the opposite of independence. It is becoming dependent upon Christ. So have you had that desire, come to the end? And second, have you signed over the title of your life? And then he does the next one, which is cross. He says this: if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Now, stop at the end. There's that word follow. He must travel the same road that I'm traveling on. But you got to take up your cross. Let me tell you what taking up your cross isn't. It is not buying some jewelry with a cross on it and putting it on. I took it up. I'm wearing it. If you want to do that, that's fine. It is not getting a really cool cross tattoo. I had a friend of mine. He had better hair than me, and he had a cross shaved in the back of his head. I always thought that was cool. But this is not what he's talking about. He's not saying take up your cross like the burdens of life and carry those around. You know, like women, you're like, I know I've got a cross. If you met him, it's my husband. He's a burden. It's not that. When Jesus said the word cross, his audience knew exactly what he's talking about. Cross. The Romans had perfected execution, and their primary form was a cross. Oftentimes, in a city that they had conquered, in the main road going into the city, they would place crosses along that main road. And so if you committed a crime that was punishable by death, they would hang you on that cross. And it would take days, and some could even last a week hanging on that cross. You'd normally die of dehydration or asphyxiation. You couldn't breathe. And why'd they do that? One, they wanted to inflict as much pain and suffering as they could. Second, they wanted everyone to know when you mess with Rome, that's what's going to happen. So when Jesus said you got to take up your cross, every hearer would go, in our context, electric chair. Every person would know this is a way to die. Now, Jesus was also giving a picture of what he's going to go do, that he is going to die on a cross. And we're grateful for that because that provides then my sins to be forgiven, and it provides me to have a relationship with him and eternal life. But Jesus was saying that I'm going to die. You got to be willing to die too. Die to yourself and follow me. Go on the road wherever it leads, because that's the road I am on, wherever that road leads. It's a hard road. Even if it leads to death, you've got to be willing to even accept that. I can just pause here and I can go into a tangent. I'm not perfect. I got my own struggles in life. But you really got to get down to that place to whatever Jesus is saying, this is what I want you to die to or do, you got to be willing to do it. Imagine a sheep under a shepherd, and the shepherd says, hey, we're going to go up here and eat. And the sheep's like, nah, that's not a good idea. I don't want them. I'm going to go over here. Or somebody riding a horse and saying, I want you to slow down. No, I'm going to speed up, actually. The reality of what Jesus was saying was, I'm going on ahead of you. I want you to go where I go, even if it meant death, even if it meant losing the most important things in your life, even if it meant making sacrifices and making life changes. That's what I want you to get down to. I like what Jesus said in the following verse, take up your cross and follow me. Matthew 24, he says this, 16:24, he says, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for me, he will find it. Jesus is saying, if you want to really get your life, you got to lose your life. If you really want to find life, you got to give it up. I struggled becoming a Christian. Now, I was 12, and so, I was convicted for probably a year and a half or so. And my biggest hang-up was this. My biggest hang-up was that I give my life to some God that's way out there, and he's going to tell me how to live my life. And I simply was not interested in that. And I know that that's a pretty punk 12-year-old, but that was me. And I struggled and I fought. But I finally got to the end of a 12-year-old rope and realized I cannot do this on my own. And the best way I knew how is that I surrendered, I denied the best I could. I took up a cross as best I could and said, okay, you got it. And did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But when Jesus said, I've come to give you a life beyond your wildest dreams, life to the full, he's saying, you can get this life if you'll follow me. This is the life that you'll get. There's a great translation I'm going to share with you. It's the worst translation, not W-O, and it says this. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone is desiring to come after me, let him forget self and lose sight of his own interest. And let him pick up his cross and carry it. And let him be taking the same road with me that I travel. For whoever is desiring to save his soul life shall ruin it. But whoever will pass a sentence of death upon his soul life for my sake will find it. The beautiful thing is that when Jesus says, if you'll put your life under my care, if you'll put your life under my control, in return, I will give you a life to the full, overflowing, abundant life. But you can't control your own life and have your own life and receive that. It really requires you following Jesus. This is where a lot of Christians today just miss it. We like Jesus and we follow Jesus on social media. We come to church occasionally. We try our best to be good Christian people. But I know too many who have missed this step. Full surrender to Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Because when we do that, he lets us see things and experience things to the full fulfillment if we do that. I was thinking about this past week, just thinking about experiences in my life where I followed people and led people. And I remembered something that happened to me back several years ago. My wife and I was part of a coaching organization. We coach youth pastors called Lead 222. In fact, I was on staff with that organization when I moved up here before I took this role at Community. And we were doing a marriage conference each year called Soul Watch. And this particular year, we were in Cabo San Lucas. And I just want to say, if you want a marriage conference, let it be in Cabo. That's a nice place. And one of the things very excited about Cabo is there were a few places that you could snorkel. So I'd read up on it. And I like salt water. And so I used to do saltwater aquariums, had one at the house, had one at my office. And, I had the clownfish, I had Dory, I had like the whole Disney thing in my aquarium. And I just loved looking at it and looking at the beautiful reef. And so I was pretty pumped about going to Cabo and doing some snorkeling. The problem is that Cabo doesn't have very many places to snorkel because it's got really strong currents and riptides. It's a steep beach. And so you got to be very careful. So I was talking to one of our guys that's in lead about that, and he said, dude, I want to go snorkeling. I've got some experience in it. I said, really? How? He said, well, I'm a former Navy SEAL. I said, that'll work. He said, I was stationed all in the Pacific Islands. I've snorkeled, I've scuba dived, done all of that, and this would be really cool. Let's go. On our day off, let's go. And I was like, done. So his name's Jim. Jim and I went and got equipment. Susan got equipment, and some of the other people, and we went. Now, it was pretty swift. Susan said, I'm done, and she goes to the beach, and everybody else to the beach. But Jim and I he's like, man, follow me. We'll go out. And so we go out. This dude is showing me stuff I'd never seen in my own. I mean, he would stop, and he would go down like 20 feet, and he'd pick up like some kind of sea cucumber and starfish, and he found an octopus, and if you ever seen one of those, it's changing colors all the time. We'd put stuff in front of it. I mean, it was an incredible experience. We were going in and out of the reef. It was awesome. And we get about 200 yards out, and I'm having a great time. And Jim stops, he surfaces, and he pulls his mask off. He starts looking around. And he says, hey, Fisher, we probably should go back in. He said, well, just stick close to me. Let's go. All right. And we weren't looking at wildlife anymore. I mean, he's on a mission. And I'm following him. And we're in and out. And suddenly the current feels different. And we're not going straight to the shore. We can't. I'm swimming as hard as I can. I'm going further out. And so we go diagonal, and then we would get behind this reef, these rocks, and we would stop for a minute. And then we'd surface and breathe, and then we'd go back down, and he would wait, and he would hold me off. And then we came up once. He said, hey, if you get tired, you need to breathe. You just need to, hit my fins, but we'll stop. 30 minutes, we're still swimming. We're not getting much closer, but we're making progress, and I'm getting beat up. If you've ever been on reefs, I'm getting cut on reefs. It's bad. I'm getting a little concerned. And we weave our way in and out of the reef and back and forth and back and forth. About 45 minutes, we make it back to the shore. We climb up, I'm smiling and laughing, and we're sitting there, and he's winded, I'm winded. And I was like, dude, what happened out there? He said, I didn't want to tell you, but we were in trouble. I was like, really? I said, how much trouble? He said, I've done this a long time. Big trouble. And I said, well, first of all, thank you for not telling me that when we were out there. And second, thanks for bringing me in. Now, I was thinking about that story, and that is what Jesus has been to my life. Snorkeling with Jesus is awesome, man. I have seen things and experienced things that has blown me away. Life to the full. Doesn't mean perfect. But when life gets hard, Jesus is right there ahead of me. And he has taken me through tough times and difficult times. And I've seen it do it with countless people. And I can't imagine when the psalmist said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because thou art with me. He even says he makes me lie down in green pastures beside still waters because that's what a good shepherd does. But the key is, in order for him to be your good shepherd, you've got to sign over your life to him. There's no other way. You can't have one foot in hell and one foot in heaven. You can't follow Jesus and yourself at the same time. You got to make that decision. And I'm curious, have you done that? Maybe you skipped a step or two. Maybe you're just not there yet. But today you can really do that. You can give your life to Jesus and say, all right, I don't care what I've done in the past. Today matters. I had someone come to me in between services and said, I prayed that prayer today. And, I've been a Christian for a long time. I said, I pray that prayer nearly every day. Not because I have doubts. I just want to follow my good shepherd. I want to make sure that everything is in order. And you can do that today. So I'm going to ask you to do something. A little uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask everyone if you would bow your head and close your eyes, including the stage. And I'm going to ask you this question because I want to pray for you, and I'm going to lead you in a prayer. If you said, Richie, I'm not sure I've ever done that, given him the title of my life, would you put your hand up and put it right back down? I'm not going to come back and talk to you. No pictures, no nothing. I can't really see you. I can see a hand up, but I don't know who it is. Put your hand up, right back down. Anyone else? Yep. Anyone else? Hand up, right up, back down. There's several. So here's what I'm going to do. Today, if you're ready, you can make that decision. you can sign the title of your life over to the Good Shepherd and follow him. I'm going to lead you in a prayer. Mean it in your heart. And it goes like this. Jesus, I know you are God's son. And I know you are my good shepherd. And I today give you control of my life. I surrender my life to you. And I will now follow you. And I will go down the road that you are calling me and leading me to go down. Thank you for saving me. And I will follow you from this day forward. All right, look up. If you prayed that prayer in a minute, you did exactly what I did many years ago and what many days I do, is saying, Jesus, you're my good shepherd. I'm going to follow you. And that's where it all begins. If you did that, you now have a journey ahead of you that is absolutely incredible to follow him. Let me close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, I come to you and I thank you so much for your love for us. And I ask right now for those who raise their hands, if they weren't ready to say that prayer, you would continue to convict them and continue to speak to them. And Father, for those that did say that prayer, may they feel your love and your warmth and forgiveness. And as we journey together, Lord, I pray that you would strengthen their lives, guide them and lead them as their good shepherd. We ask this in your name. Amen.